Have you ever felt that eerie sensation of being watched, even when you're absolutely certain you're alone? The silence of the night hides secrets that only those who wander deserted streets truly understand. The few lit streetlights cast strange shadows, and every little sound seems amplified. Fear crawls over your skin when you realize that, somewhere out there, someone is watching. Someone who shouldn't be there. Some people have had encounters they will never forget. Terrifying encounters with strangers who appeared out of nowhere, bringing with them an unspeakable horror. Imagine walking alone, heading home after a long day. The streets are empty, and only the sound of your footsteps echoes against the pavement. Suddenly, another sound mixes with yours. Footsteps, but they are not yours. Your heart races, your fingers clench, and your breathing grows heavy. You speed up, but the footsteps speed up too. Then, in a moment of bravery, you turn around. Nothing. The emptiness of the night stays back at you, but the feeling of being followed keeps burning at the back of your neck. A young driver was traveling down a poorly lit road when he saw someone standing on the roadside. A tall man, wearing old clothes, his face partly hidden in the shadows. He hesitated, but something inside him made him slow down. As his car passed the figure, the man smiled. But it wasn't a normal smile. It was too wide, too wrong, as if his mouth had been stretched beyond what was humanly possible. The driver slammed his foot on the gas, but in the rearview mirror, he saw the silhouette start walking. Within seconds, it was running faster than any human should be able to. On another silent night, a young woman was walking home from a bar when she noticed someone staring at her from across the street. A man in a black suit, completely still, looking straight at her. She looked away, a chill running up her spine. When she looked again, he was closer. She picked up a pace, a few more steps, and she dared to look again. Closer still, but she never saw him move. He was just there, as if defying the laws of space and time. That was the last time she ever walked alone in that city. There's something unsettling about the late hours of the night. Something that turns the ordinary into the terrifying. Maybe it's the deep silence, or maybe it's the fact that we're not the only ones awake. A night security guard was called to check on a suspicious movement in the building's parking lot. The camera showed a figure standing near the cars. He went down, flashlight in hand, and shouted for the person to leave. But as soon as the light hit the figure, he noticed something disturbing. The man was standing in a puddle, but it hadn't rained, and his eyes gleamed in an impossible way. Another story tells of a taxi driver who picked up a passenger on an empty road. She had a distant look in her eyes and whispered an address he recognized but didn't like driving to. Still, he followed the route. The entire ride, she remained silent until, out of nowhere, she asked, "Have you ever seen a dead person?" The driver felt a chill and looked into the rearview mirror, but there was no one in the back seat. The car was empty, and the air had turned ice cold. Some people ignore their instincts when something feels off. A truck driver stopped to rest at a 24-hour gas station. As he drank his coffee, a man sat beside him and started a conversation. He seemed normal, but there was something about the way he smiled that made the trucker uneasy. The stranger then asked, "Do you believe in demons?" Before he could answer, he blinked, and the man was gone. The coffee cup still sat there, steam rising into the cold night air. A woman once stepped into an elevator late at night and found a man already inside. He didn't press any buttons, just stood there, smiling faintly, almost imperceptibly, while staring at her. The elevator rose, stopped at her floor. As the doors opened, he finally spoke, "See you soon." His voice sent ice through her veins. When she turned back, he was gone. The night hides things we cannot explain. Strangers who appear out of nowhere. Eyes that seem to pierce through your soul. Presences that defy logic. Sometimes, a simple encounter can turn into something that will haunt you forever. Now tell me, do you feel safe when you're alone at night? Are you absolutely sure that no one is watching you right now? You tell yourself that you're safe, that nothing is really there. But deep down, something inside you whispers otherwise. The air feels heavier, the darkness deeper. Shadows stretch in ways that don't make sense. Maybe it's just your imagination, or maybe, just maybe, something is watching you from the corner of your eye. Something that vanishes the second you turn your head. But it's there. It's always there. A man was walking home after work, his route taking him past an abandoned lot. He had walked this way 100 times. But tonight, something felt off. The lot was empty, yet he heard breathing. Slow, heavy, deliberate. He stopped. The breathing stopped. He took a step forward. It returned. But this time, it was closer. He ran, feeling unseen eyes burning into his back. He never took that path again. A woman working late at an office was the last to leave. She pressed the elevator button, watching as the numbers counted down. The doors slid open. Empty. She stepped inside, and just as the doors began to close, a whisper filled the space. Going down. The voice came from behind her, but she was alone. She turned to look. The doors shut. The elevator descended on its own, to a floor that didn't exist. There are places where the air feels wrong, where the silence is too deep. A man stopped at a highway rest area in the middle of the night. Everything looked normal, until he glanced at the gas station attendant. The man was standing too still, his eyes unblinking, his lips curled into an unnatural grin. "Are you lost?" the attendant asked. But his mouth didn't move. The driver sped away, heart hammering, afraid to check his mirror. Another traveler stopped at a diner after midnight. The place was nearly empty, just a single man sitting in a booth. When he walked past, the man grabbed his wrist. "Don't look at the clock," he whispered, his fingers ice cold. The traveler froze. The clock on the wall wasn't ticking. In fact, the hands weren't moving at all. When he turned back, the booth was empty. The coffee cup was still warm. A woman boarded the last train home, settling into a seat near the window. Across from her sat a man with his eyes shut, breathing deeply, as if asleep. But when the train entered a tunnel and the lights flickered, his eyes snapped open. They were completely black. He smiled. When the train emerged from the tunnel, he was gone, and in his seat was a neatly folded note. "You saw me." Somewhere in the countryside, a teenager dared to explore an abandoned house on a dare. Inside, everything was covered in dust, untouched for years. Yet, in the living room, the television was on, playing static. The volume was barely audible, but under the static, there was whispering. He leaned in closer, straining to hear. The voices were saying his name. He ran. The TV clicked off by itself. A couple driving late at night took a wrong turn down a narrow road. They drove for miles, yet the scenery never changed. No signs, no intersections, just endless road and trees. Then, the headlights caught something up ahead, a woman standing in the middle of the road, barefoot, her long hair covering her face. The car swerved. When they looked back, she was right outside the passenger window, her face pressed against the glass. A security guard at an empty hotel heard knocking at the front desk. He checked the cameras. No one was there. The knocking came again, louder. He stepped out, looking left and right. The lobby was empty. As he turned back, the register bell dinged. A room key was missing. He never found out who, or what, had taken it. An insomniac sat on his balcony, staring at the city below. In the apartment building across from his, a woman stood at her window, staring back at him. He looked away for just a second. When he looked back, she was closer, standing on her balcony now, mirroring his pose exactly. He closed the curtains, but he could still feel her watching. There are stories of people vanishing in plain sight. A boy was playing outside his house, waving at his neighbors. His mother turned away for a second. When she turned back, he was gone. No sound, no struggle, just gone. The only trace left behind was a single shoe, sitting perfectly upright on the sidewalk. No footprints leading away. A lone trucker on a cross-country route pulled over to rest. As he settled in his seat, someone knocked on his window. A woman stood there, drenched in rain. But it hadn't rained in days. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. He blinked. She was gone. The windshield was wet, only on the passenger side. In the dead of night, a child woke up to the sound of someone whispering. Soft, melodic, coming from the closet. She pulled the covers over her head, squeezing her eyes shut. The whispering stopped. Then, a slow creak. The closet door opened, inch by inch. The darkness inside was deeper than the rest of the room. Something breathed. A lone jogger ran through a park just before sunrise. The air was crisp, the path empty. Then he heard another pair of footsteps, perfectly in sync with his. He stopped. The footsteps stopped. He ran faster. So did they. He spun around. No one was there. But the footsteps kept running, circling him. A woman driving alone at night kept seeing the same hitchhiker on the side of the road. Same clothes, same stance. Mile after mile. Finally, she stopped. The hitchhiker smiled, walking toward her car. As he got closer, she saw his feet. They weren't touching the ground. She sped away. When she got home, her backseat door was unlocked. A man checked into a hotel with no other guests. That night, he heard laughter in the hallway. Children laughing. He stepped out. The hall was empty. The laughter came again, but this time, from inside his room, from under the bed. Have you ever walked past a mannequin and thought, for just a second, that it moved? A mall worker was closing up when he passed a display. The mannequins were all facing forward. He locked up and checked the cameras before leaving. One mannequin had turned its head. A lost hiker found a small cabin deep in the woods. The windows were dark, the door slightly open. Inside, the only furniture was a single chair in the middle of the room. On the walls, hundreds of Polaroid pictures. All of them were of him. In an old hospital, a nurse checked on a patient in room 304. The bed was empty. The room was cold. She turned to leave, and the patient called her name from inside the closet. But room 304 had been vacant for years. You think you're alone. You think you're safe. But sometimes, the night holds more than just shadows. Sometimes, something watches. Sometimes, something waits. And sometimes, it follows. And now, I leave you with a question. Have you ever experienced something like this? A strange encounter in the middle of the night. A shadow that moved when it shouldn't have. A whisper when you were completely alone? Tell me in the comments. I want to know your story. Your interaction is what keeps this community alive. So if you enjoy these chilling stories, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new video. There are many more terrifying encounters waiting to be told, and you won't want to miss what's coming next. Stay alert, stay safe, and remember, sometimes, the scariest things are the ones you can't explain. See you in the next video, if you DA.